And a good morning to you all, and welcome to the starting lineup. Great to have you with us on an absolutely beautiful Monday in the Ozarks. Ned Reynolds joined by
Dwight Glenn
and Maddux Radosevic.
Art Haynes will be with us a little bit later on. Scott Purrier is out on the golf course this morning, and for the next 2 hours, we are right here talking sports and whatever. And like to hear from you on both the phone and text line. They're both the same, folks. 417, of course, is the area code. 447-1021. 447-1021 with your calls, queries, comments, questions, or texting, one way or the other. We will handle whatever is on your mind. Do we have any texts from over the weekend at all, Maddux, that you can see?
No texts yet, Ned, but we'll keep an eye
out. We certainly will. Great to have you with us, folks. The starting lineup is brought to you by Play It Again Sports in the Fremont Shopping Center, Battlefield in Fremont, Springfield. Can't go wrong. Everything you want in the world of athletics right there at Play It Again Sports, including the uniforms and restringing of tennis rackets and pickleball and everything, and golf. Hey, it's all right there at Play It Again Sports. By Citizens Bank of Rogersville with two locales. One, of course, is adjacent to Highland Springs, and the other is in Rogersville itself. By Swing Right Golf. That's located at the south end of Campbell Avenue, a little bit north of Nixa, and you can't go wrong. Here, now, I can't go on about this because I live in Springfield, but here's a Nixa resident who knows all
I live in
about
Springfield now.
That's you do, don't you? But
no. I've driven by it for years and years, and we talk about Swainwright being a good family place, and it is. I mean, the adults can enjoy hitting golf balls maybe on the simulator, but you can take your child that might be in baseball or softball, enjoy the batting cages. I know a lot of students, especially college students, play Frisbee golf now. They have a Frisbee golf course, and they have miniature golf, too, if you just want to take the family and literally putt around. There's many things to do. It's convenient to Nixa and Springfield, so how do you beat that?
You can't. Can't beat it at all. It's right there, Swing Right Golf. And by Marshfield Chevrolet at the I-44 exit, couple of left turns, and you are there at Marshfield Chevrolet. Did have a caller on the line. The caller apparently was quite impatient. But, hey, you've got to get through the commercials, folks. That's what pays for the show. So please give us a call back at 447-1021.
It's very likely calling to see what time the visitation is for the St. Louis Cardinals.
You're being morbid about the whole thing, but indeed that loss yesterday. And that takes us to the starting five, of course, the top stories. Let's go. We don't have all that many callers on this show, so while we have the opportunity, let's get somebody on there right now. Good morning. With whom are we talking?
This is Chuck.
Hey, Chuck. What's going on, man?
Well, I had a couple of things to talk about, but one, did you see Chris Cantor getting ejected from the WNBA game? I didn't know if that's something you'd want to comment on.
Well, probably not, but no, I didn't see it. What was the circumstance?
Well, he was wearing a shirt something about, I don't remember the exact thing, but it was something about women.
It's the transgender issue is what it is.
Yeah, and a lot of the Chicago players went out there towards him yelling at him, and they kicked him out because he wore that shirt. And he said him and a fellow ex-NBA player that was with him, I don't remember his name, said they're going to declare themselves eligible for the WNBA draft, because they know how silly it is, not letting men play,
Well, we're not going to comment on that. That's a political issue, and we try to disdain any political commentary. Was there another question? Have another question?
The Cardinal game.
Yeah.
My wife told me the Cardinals were on, and I was listening to it on the radio, and I said there was already 2 outs in the ninth. I'll go ahead and listen to the rest of it on the radio, and I sure thought he was going to take O'Brien out, but I guess when he's your closer, he's got to get through games like that, and it was just really disappointing.
I'm not sure that Chucky had anybody else to bring in there. He said, he being Marmol, Ali Marmol at the end of the game, he's my closer. We're going to go with him. And even though he closed, he closed a trap door on that team because, after all, he got only 2 outs, gave up 5 runs and 6 hits. I beg your pardon. 5 hits and 6 runs is what he gave up in the 9th inning, all on him. He took over a 4-0 lead, and he got shelled. And he has been shelled before. So how you can justify having your closer in there for certain moments like that, it's beyond me.
Yeah, he's been struggling lately. I don't know what happened. But.
Well, that's a part of the game. That does happen. Hey, Chuck, appreciate your listening to us. Keep calling, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, man. And that's what we were going to get into, that one. But even before then, now, you're a devoted golf fan, and I know you watched the FedEx out of Belle Reve on Sunday. Once again, Wyndham Clark does his best to blow a 5-stroke lead, and still won.
Resilience. I mean, it would have been really easy to fold your tent when you got Rory McIlroy playing in your group, playing very consistently, but was never able to grab that lead and just grab it by the horns and keep it. He tied for the lead for a period of time, but Wyndham Clark showed resilience, and I think he was feeding off the crowd supporting Rory McIlroy, which is unusual for an American crowd to support Rory because he's controversial too. But Wyndham Clark has kind of been the bad boy of golf. You know, he destroyed an old-time antique locker in Oakmont a couple of years ago, there was no call for that.
And that's why and broadcasters and reporters are not to be biased in any way, and I try not to be. But that's why it doesn't bother me if he loses, because here's a guy, it's the U.S. Open, and it was at Oakmont in Pittsburgh, in the Pittsburgh area, and he was having terrible rounds on there, and it was a tough golf course. But he takes it upon himself to destroy, and he had to pay for it and apologize for it, destroy the locker room in there, and I thought to myself, you selfish so-and-so. Here are 155 other golfers out there competing. Do they do that? And they're as frustrated as you are? No. But so you have to? Hey, you can go to that place down below.
Well, it's a gentleman's game. It always has been. It does not mean that it does not frustrate the best of us, the worst of us. It is a horribly frustrating game. But the PGA Tour has a code of conduct. There is a way you're supposed to behave on the course. That's why you don't see them in shorts. You know, you're supposed to wear slacks and a collared shirt, which they've been a little bit more lax on the collared shirt, what defines that now. But to go to one of the most classic, respected country clubs, which is Oakmont, you know, one of Arnold Palmer's home clubs, and go in a locker room that has been there for well over 100 years and destroying it out of your own frustration is petulant, to be quite honest. Now, he has apologized. He recognizes that behavior, and he's trying to become a better person. It doesn't mean that the crowd, much like you, thought, well, it's hard to forgive something like that. We're going to root for your opponent.
You talked about controlling the temper. There was an episode, and it was yesterday, and Colin Morikawa, who is a very fine young golfer, Morikawa misses a putt that I think would have either tied for the lead or put him one stroke back. It was a birdie putt, and it hung on the lip. What he did, and I love this too, you could tell he was so doggone angry. He took his club, the putter, held it with both hands, and bit into the handle, rather than say anything or
break the club.
Or break it.
Which would have been easy to do, and it's been done. You know, Tiger Woods is part of the problem for this, and I respect greatly. I don't think he's the greatest golfer of all time, but he's one of the two people you would have to talk about, he and Jack Nicklaus. But his every shot was followed on TV after 1997, and now TV is 24/7. Every shot that Tiger plays is going to be televised, even if it's on video for PGA, but it also means it's going to be mic'd. And he was the one that started cursing on the golf course. And trust me, Ned can tell you, I have nothing against cursing, but it's against the code of conduct. And then you would hear Tiger hit a bad shot and, you know, there's an F-bomb coming out. You never heard Arnold Palmer do that out loud. I'm sure he was feeling it inside. Jack Nicklaus, the worst I ever heard him say was, Jack! You know, he'd hit a bad shot and chastise himself. So, you know, Maddux, you're younger. It's a different generation. But do you still think with the PGA Tour that respecting the game and respecting the code of conduct is a big deal?
100%, Dwight. And that goes for the crowd as well. And we witnessed at the U.S. Open this year some fans cheering for bad shots for Wyndham Clark. And I don't think that's acceptable either. It's just not part of the decorum.
There is certainly a paradox, too, with what happens during the course of a year and in Ryder Cup years. Here is Rory McIlroy, who is a favorite. He is very outspoken in his allegiance to PGA and an outspoken professional golfer, a guy who maintains the decorum that you want, and the fans love him, except in the Ryder Cup. Well, and they were booing him in the Ryder. Wait a minute.
I think there's one element that is obviously changed crowd behavior. Well, there's two elements. One is cell phones, and you notice Augusta National does not even allow them on the course. Period. No question mark. They still have pay phones down there. I think somebody'd be hard suited to find a dime to put in there to use them.
They don't have to. Sarah?
Andy and Barney might be able to help them. It is Georgia. But the other thing that's come into it is you can gamble on golf. If you're one of these people in the fans and you have a bet on Rory, to make a comeback or Rory to individually beat Wyndham for the day. So that enters into it. And what's to keep somebody from yelling in the middle of Ned Reynolds putting when he has a bet against his opposition, to distract him while he's putting? It's happened this year.
Sure. It has, and there is nothing to prevent that except ejection from the grounds, but that doesn't do you any good at all.
You don't get the do-over in golf,
No.
And that's the thing. So you missed that putt that might have cost you a chance to get in the final 30, and I'm sure you saw the payouts. The $100 million pool was paid out after yesterday's round, so this week, in what is it, Georgia again, isn't it? Yeah.
Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. They're top 30, start from zero. They're playing, the winner gets $10 million. Scotty Scheffler made $23.3 million yesterday, plus the $10 million he got for winning the FedEx Cup.
So he has already pocketed $33 million. He's the one, the points championship's already decided. He locked that up, I think, maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, or maybe even before then. So he won that. So what's awaiting him now is, I love this, the $10 million first prize at East Lake in Atlanta. That's the FedEx Championship. The others were a paltry $3,600,000. That's what Wyndham Clark won yesterday and what Scotty won the week before in Memphis. $3,600,000 on a $20 million purse, which is where many of the tournaments are going to be next year and certainly in 2028 when they change the whole format. But this one coming up, starting on Thursday at East Lake in Atlanta, is a $40 million purse. $40 million. The winner gets $10 million. He puts that in his pocket and he's out of there until Uncle Sam comes along, and then he doesn't put it in his pocket anymore.
Well, the agent will want their 10% too,
and the agent, the 10,
and the caddy.
A caddy gets plenty. I think caddy's 5%. Though.
Well, for a win, a caddy normally gets paid 10%. A top 10, it's 7%, and then it's a 5%. But some of these caddies, and Tiger did this with Stevie Williams back in the day, they're under a contract for the year. If you're a Scotty Scheffler and you're going to gross $70 million just in on-the-course earnings, and you're paying your caddy, let's say, 7% of that, well, you're talking about $5 million for a caddy.
That is a lot. And you wonder why those guys are so diligent and why they don't complain at all about carrying the heavy bags around and selecting the clubs and putting up with any kind of criticism they have. That's why, because they're getting reimbursed quite well, and especially the ones at the Masters.
Well, and mentioning golf, and I know we have to go to break, but there was also a rest in peace yesterday in the golf world. LIV Golf may have just played their last round.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, too. They maintain the tournament was in Indianapolis, and this was it. Their championship in Michigan 2 weeks from now has been canceled. Didn't have enough people buying tickets and things like that. And I noticed in scrolling through my streaming that I have now, there was a channel, and I think it was Fox, if I'm not mistaken, that was devoted to the LIV Golf, which I passed right over, and I wondered to myself how many others are passing right over this, too. I suspect quite a few.
I think so, and there's two things that are going to determine whether there is LIV Golf next year. They've already said they're going to reduce it to 10 tournaments. The purses are going to be reduced. They're trying to find financing for $350 million to sustain the tour for one more year, but they're going to require the players that are currently under contract for LIV to commit here in the next 2 weeks. The other thing is the DP Tour, where a lot of these European Tour players go that are on LIV, like John Rahm, that gives them an outlet because the DP World Tour is still connected to the PGA Tour. They said there's going to be heavy fines again next year for anybody that has DP World membership playing on LIV.
And LIV reportedly owes John Rahm $180 million. Wow.
You think he takes an IOU?
I doubt it very much. And he's not the only one. There are other unpaid commitments, contract commitments from LIV that they had with the Saudi Arabian people and all that sort of thing. But bottom line is this. They have many debts to fulfill. Does this new agency who they have hired to be the new financier for it, do they commit to something like that? Gosh, I think that'd be chancy.
What's going to make somebody care about LIV next year when they haven't cared for 5 years?
We'll see. We'll see what happens. And you are right. Excuse me. You're right about taking the time out. We will do so. A quick break in the starting lineup, and we'll be back in just a second. And we very much appreciate your being with us on the starting lineup. Ned Reynolds along with
Dwight Glenn
and Maddux Radosevic.
Now, you do have a text on there, and if you will, read that one for us very quickly.
Absolutely, Ned. Rick Horton mentioned on the radio yesterday that O'Brien's velocity has been down lately.
Well, now, that game, of course, is heard right here at 102.1. I did not hear Horton mention that, but certainly he would know, being an ex-pitcher. And there's no question the guy, this is not the first time that he has been shelled in a relief appearance, but it's the first time he's totally given up a 4-0 lead and lost a game 6-4. So maybe there is something to that. What else do you have on there?
And we also have another message that says, Dwight, I was wondering if you know, or maybe your dad, my former history teacher many years ago, would know about barnstorming major leaguers in the States many years ago. My late great-grandfather's favorite player was Babe Ruth. He saw him play and pitch, and I think a local bunch, and he played against him. He lived in Abbeville when I knew him, but lived in Nevada, and who knows where else in the state. And it also says, I was real young then and don't remember a lot.
Well, the old record collector, Dwight's dad, Wayne Glenn, I'm older than he is, so I would remember it more than he would.
Well, yeah, because you covered the games.
I probably did. Yes, they did barnstorm quite a bit. Now, this is far when I was a little kid, of course. But, yeah, they barnstormed around and did have a lot of games and still do, as a matter of fact, because there are a select number of major leaguers who go to Japan to play after the regular season is over. Does it carry the same amount of weight? Now, back then, you have to keep in mind that the World Series was it. Once that was done and there were no playoffs, nothing like that, just the World Series. Once it was over, then football took over, college football, and the NFL was not what it is now. So, yes, there was plenty of room for barnstorming. Babe Ruth did compete in many respects along that, and so did Ty Cobb to some extent, although Cobb was older than Ruth. But, yeah, they made the rounds and played in all the small towns, played against the town teams, and it was a lot of fun and certainly provided a lot of conjecture, and I'm sure quite a good time for Babe Ruth and company.
Well, also, they needed the money. I mean, maybe not so much Babe Ruth, even though he was really good at spending money, but a lot of those players were barely making a living wage. So you either get a real job in the off season. You know, some people would open a bowling alley. You know, Jerry Lumpy worked in the off season. Some would be coaches and everything else. So barnstorming, and that's where the Negro Leagues really started being formed, was the barnstorming, because then there was the ability for them to play against some of the best players in the world that otherwise Major League Baseball wouldn't allow.
Babe Ruth had one of the great comments in world history. He was awarded the top salary in baseball, which I think was $75,000 a year, or something along those lines. And the reporter said, Babe, you're making more than the President of the United States. And his remark was, I had a better year than he did.
And he did, because it was Herbert Hoover at the time, so I guarantee he had a better year.
There's another great Babe Ruth story when he was negotiating his salary with the Yankees. The offer that he got was $50,000, but he wanted to make $1,000 every single week, so he negotiated for $52,000. And so he was going over this with the Yankee owner at the time, and he said, how about we flip a coin for it? Babe Ruth won the coin flip, got it up to $52,000.
That's how he got it with the coin toss.
That was it.
$2,000 more, which was a lot. That's a major increase, guys.
Well, the other thing too is it's a well-known story, but it also shows the kind of human being and man that Stan Musial was. He had a horrible year, I believe it was 1959, and he went to management for the St. Louis Cardinals and requested a salary cut because he said, I did not live up to my contract last year.
They did not honor it. Of course, they went ahead and said, no, you're signed here, and besides, we appreciate your having me around. He's also the recipient, and I love this too. This is long before television had slow-mo and all this sort of thing. Sports Illustrated magazine Stan was in a slump, and this is in early or mid-May, and they did a shot-by-shot-by-shot picture of him at his motion, and it showed that he was making a flaw. And Musial is quoted as saying, I wish I had seen this before. Now I know what I'm doing wrong. Corrected it, bang, out you come with another great season.
It's amazing.
It is.
I know you're going to get to this as we kind of wander around the sports world, but what do you think about a professional, never played in a professional game, just has been in camp, going from the Cleveland Browns back to Ole Miss? Put himself in the transfer portal last weekend and wanted to go back and play for Lane Kiffin.
I saw that, and I just can't believe it's going to be allowed, number one, if they do allow it. But then again, the NCAA is interesting. They have they won a case in court. Probably that's the end of one of the longest losing streaks in sports history, the NCAA in the courtroom. But they did win over the weekend their appeal about allowing the 2022 athletes to come back. They have won that. That's not going to be allowed until the other group appeals, which I don't think they can do. But over and above that, so the NCAA has won that. The 2022 athletes who one judge said, oh, yeah, go ahead and let them play. The NCAA says, nope, they have exhausted their eligibility, and they will not be permitted to play from here on in. So a win there. Maybe it fell into that category.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. This is not over. I mean, there's 50 different states with 50 different courts, and, you know, especially the farther south you get, we've already seen what Ole Miss judges can do down there.
Allowing Tristan, what's Tristan's last name, the quarterback at Ole Miss, to come back after, and he's also exhausted his eligibility. Is it Chambliss? Is that his name?
Yeah, that's correct. Chambliss.
Yeah, Tristan Chambliss. Allowing him to come back is just a miscarriage of justice, in my opinion. He already exhausted his eligibility, and to allow him to come back because a judge in some small town in Mississippi said, yeah, let him come on back and play for Ole Miss. Come on, people. There's got to be some level. NCAA, I think, went to the appeals court on this one, and if they did, it hasn't been heard, and I don't think it's going to be heard until after the season's over, which doesn't do anybody any good at all.
The precedent's already been set for a professional to go back to college because Alabama had one on their basketball team last year.
They did. They absolutely did have one. So yeah, this whole thing has to be adjudicated and won't be until maybe the second week in September when Congress comes back and when the Save College Sports Bill will be heard and will be voted upon. I'm hoping it passes because it has a lot of great positives in there, including governance of the nil circumstances as they are and the transfer policy. 1 year to transfer your first year, and then from there on in you have to sit out a year.
Maddux, you're in school right now, so you're dealing with this literally as we speak.
Correct.
How do you view this? What do you think is right or wrong? Not that any of us know the answer, but do you agree with a fifth year from the start so there's no red shirt involved?
Man, Dwight, I think the one thing that comes to mind for me when looking at all this is just that it's such a big mess, and it's been a mess for quite some time now. I mean, this has been going on really since COVID where we've had all these issues. I think the fifth year, it's really difficult to discern whether or not that is the right call at this stage in time. But I will say lots of coaches seem to be in favor of this policy, and I think their opinion should be taken into account.
And I have to admit to you, I'm in favor of it too, because it does away with any of the controversy you have with the red shirts and things of that nature. There is no red shirting. There is no timeout for injuries, anything along those lines. You have 5 years to complete 5 years of eligibility, period, exclamation point.
Well, I think the other thing you get into, there's certain things that you can control, certain things that you can't. There's been money going under the table for these players for 100 years, probably, literally, even back to New York, was that the 30s or 40s or 50s?
The scandals,
yes.
The betting scandals in the 50s and the early 1950s.
But the one thing you can control is eligibility. That's the one thing that they can control. They lost control of NIL at the very beginning because the NCAA did not come up with rules with it. It got out of control. If a booster wants to pay a player, they will figure out a way to do it. But you can control how long they can play. And the biggest thing to me is getting the rule in place where they can transfer once without penalty. If they transfer a second time, they have to sit out a year.
That's the biggie. And I'm right with you on this one. Of course, it used to be if you transferred at all, you sat out a year. But, all right, I can understand perhaps waiving it for the first year. But after that, no. That way you do away with the tramp athletes who are just there for 1 year, go here, go there. And you're seeing that in sports as of now.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Should there be an amendment made if your coach leaves?
Well, no, I think they made that. The coaches can't leave. They cannot leave during the course of a season. That's part of this new college bill that's going to be voted upon by the Senate. I think the ruling is...
Is that the Lane Kiffin rule?
It is the Lane Kiffin rule. That's exactly what it is. You can't leave during the course of your season, which includes the postseason. In other words, the coach can't, sorry, guys, I'm leaving to take another job at another place. But, Coach, we still have the Orange Bowl to play, just to use an example. Sorry about that. Well, we're not going either. That's all apparently going to be abolished with this new college, what are they calling now? The Save the College or Protect the College Athletics bill. And I hope it's heard. I hope the Senate gets off its behind and gets this thing read and voted upon because it will be federal law.
Well, it'll be interesting. You've got the Congress people that are going to be trying to get elected in November, and how will that affect how they vote? Because they're protecting their own jobs too. So to say it's a mess is an understatement. It's a huge mess. That would be a big step, I think, in at least getting some control over it.
Well, it's bipartisan. Number one, the College Protective Sports is bipartisan. And Ted Cruz and a senator from, I think, Washington, Cantwell is her name, and then Senator Schmidt from here in Missouri is behind it as well. And it's a bipartisan group, so the politics, I don't think, enters into it from that aspect of things.
The coaching rule is something that I'm very passionate about, with having coaches stay for the entire season. That includes any bowl games that team is going to play in, because the National Football League, I think, has already figured this out. So it should be an easy fix to just get that down to the college level, to have the interviewing process for all these new job openings wait until these seasons end, because it's just not fair to the players who worked so hard all season long to get to that position to play in a bowl game. I mean, that's the chance of a lifetime. And I think if that happens, then you're going to see bowl games mean more to the fans. Right now, I think some of these bowl games that are played in are just not as meaningful as they used to be. And that's really a tragedy, because that is a big part of college football.
And some of them are being canceled, as a matter of fact.
They're made for TV events, Ned.
Well,
it's to fill ESPN's schedule. I mean, they have to have something to put on the air. They don't care if there's 10,000 people there or 1,000 people there.
And frequently there aren't.
Right. So, but part of that will naturally take care of itself in its own course. The big thing is players can't go in the portal till after the last bowl game, which is a national championship game, and the same with coaches.
So the major bowl game that was canceled this year is the California Bowl, which was played at SoFi Stadium and usually involved West Coast teams, but over and above all that, that one's scrubbed. It drew, I think, maybe 10,000 or 12,000 for a game involving the University of California, and that's gone. There are several others that could very well follow suit, although I think the four-letter network may do its best to try to keep some of them alive so they can have some programming on there, and it all figures into that big red eye that's facing you, the television camera. Timeout. We don't have one on here. Timeout. Back in a second. And to make some adjustments in the lineup today as we welcome you back to the starting lineup, Ned Reynolds along with
Dwight Glenn
and Maddux Radosevic.
But no change in the sponsorship group, because the starting lineup still brought to you by Play It Again Sports, by Citizens Bank of Rogersville, by Swing Right Golf, and by Marshfield Chevrolet, and it's great having you with us. Also great to welcome our special guest, who is the award winner of the Ozone at KY3, the outstanding coverage of most of, if not all, the prep events in the Ozarks. Chris Parker, who is the editor and manager of Ozone. Chris, thanks very much for being with us. You're about now to embark upon, let's say, 4 or 5 months of really intense coverage. I'm sure you're ready for it.
It gets going here. Thursday, we open up with Diamond at Buffalo, the first football game of the year. They're on Thursday.
How about that? So this is interesting, too, because most of the games will be on Friday, August the 28th, but those two will be on the 27th, and we've done this before, of course, but you might explain why those Thursday and Saturday games are played.
Referee availability, so they had to move. And honestly, it's not as bad this year as it has been in past years. Like the last couple of years, it seems like every week we have the Southwest Missouri Saturday and Thursday game. It's a lot fewer this year. But Houston, for example, though, I think their coach said they play 4 of their games either on a Thursday or a Saturday. So just something about Houston, they got bumped off of a lot of Fridays. But for this week, yeah, they're opening up on Thursday with a Diamond at Buffalo. 2 new head coaches, and that'll kick off the season for Southwest Missouri.
Who is picking on the Houston Tigers like that? My goodness sake, 4 of them. Well, hey, those things do happen. Now, we did have the Jamborees, which occurred, and I think for the most part, all on Friday night. Did you attend any of them, and what did you surmise from what you saw?
Yeah, I was out at 2 of them. I started over at Logan Rogersville at 6 o'clock, saw Hillcrest, Logan Rogersville, and Reed Spring. And then I went over to Ozark for the 7 o'clock, which was Ozark Nixa and Kickapoo. So, these jamborees, you get a little bit of a look, but it's really hard to tell, to be honest with you. I saw a little bit more in the Rogersville jamboree. Logan Rogersville looked really good. But over there in that Kickapoo Ozark Nixa jamboree, they all play each other. So in the regular season, so they don't really show a ton. Nixa looked good running the ball. Ozark's defense continued from what I saw at the Branson team camp, and their defense looked really, really good in their section against Kickapoo. And then, Kickapoo's still trying to install some new stuff, so it was kind of tough to tell exactly how they're going to look. So the way they look in this jamboree versus the way they look in Week 9 are going to be so vastly different as Coach Bill Boris gets them moving in the direction he's looking for.
Chris, as somebody with experience going to these jamborees, could you tell us a little bit more about what exactly you're looking for when you get to see this action in scrimmage form?
You're really focusing. So the way a lot of them are set up is I think you get 12 plays on offense, 12 plays on defense. And so you're really locked in, and generally about half those plays are varsity action. And then by then the last 6 plays, you go JV for 3, and then your number 3 is for 3. So you really lock in on those first 6 plays each way when you're seeing best on best. And that's where you really get an idea of kind of what they potentially are. But again, you're talking a couple first downs is all you get to see. So if you blink, you miss it. So that's a big thing for jamborees is lock in at the start, and you really get a look at kind of who they think the starters are.
Chris, what is the attendance like for these jamborees? I know everybody has kids in it or going to be there, but we see, 5,000 to 6,000 people at a Nixa home game. What was the attendance like at Rogersville and Ozark?
It was more, I'd say probably about, 50% of what you're going to see on a Friday night. And to their credit, over at Ozark, the student sections were great. Nixa had a big student section over on the visiting side. Ozark and Kickapoo both brought their student sections down. So big credits to those kids for making the trip to Ozark and getting out there. But yeah, it's a lot different. It's a lot smaller. And I was at 2 3-team jamborees. Obviously, there was mostly 4-team jamborees. Out at Sarcoxy was a 6-team jamboree. So that really affects the attendance when you get that extra fan base in there. But, just eyeballing it, I'd probably call it 50%.
Well, I'm glad you said students, because something you said earlier, there are so many schools, especially smaller schools, going to 4-day school weeks. Do you think that could lead to more Thursday games in the future because those kids aren't going to school on Friday?
I don't think it affects. I don't think the 4-day school week affects it much at all. I think the coaches like their routines, and they want to stay on schedule. And playing on Fridays keeps them on a consistent routine. I don't think anybody would volunteer to do the Thursdays because, again, when you're thinking about the community, there's a lot of people. Fewer people have to work on Saturdays. So if they're going to come out late and watch a football game, you want it on the Friday when there's not work the next day. For a lot of people. So I think Fridays, and it's Friday Night Lights. It's tradition. It's what high school football is. So I think you'll continue to see it stay on Fridays if they can.
Chris, you mentioned in passing one of the major coaching changes that occurred, and that was Coach Forrest coming over from Fairgrove to take over the Kickapoo program and establishing his own level of coaching. What do you mean by that? How does he differ in his coaching from what Kickapoo had been doing?
Well, Coach Forrest likes to run an RPO. It takes a little bit to learn it, and he does it they do it a lot out of the shotgun, but they're still going to run it a lot. So it's one of those that, you just got to learn that. I mean, you're doing the same thing with former Kickapoo coach Nate Thomas up at Marshfield. They're running the flex bone up there. Buffalo, they're adding the flex bone in. There's several teams that are going to start running the flex bone with their new coaches this year. So it's one of those that it's not just Kickapoo. There's a lot of teams that are running brand new offenses and brand new defenses that they've really got to learn.
You bring up the RPO right there with Kickapoo, Chris. How difficult do you think that is for high school players to master?
It's just reps. I mean, it's all. Once you learn the terminology and once you learn kind of the reads you need to be making, it's the same as that flex bone offense. It's once you learn the nuance of it, it's not so bad. It's just, you've got to completely change the way you talk, change the terminology. And terminology is a big thing with when Colin plays for a lot of these kids. So I think the learning curve, it's not as bad. I don't think it's as bad as you think. And I think, like I said, with Kickapoo specifically in any of these, what you see in week 1 and what you see in week 9 are going to be two completely different teams.
Shifting gears just for a moment, and then we'll come back to football. You may have talked about this at a previous show with Scott and Ned, but I'm curious because high school girls volleyball is also getting ready to start as well, and there's been a resurgence of this area in the state competition. Are the usual suspects who you expect to be on top again, or do you have any insight to that?
Yeah, Nixa and Ozark, both very good. Ozark added... they lost Tara Venable, who's an All-American, but Blair Boo, who was an All-Stater at Stratford, she transferred down with her mom, who's now the athletic director over at Ozark. So they're going to be good again. Webb City's always right there. They got a set of triplets who kind of lead them over there at Webb City. Marshfield won a district title last year, but they got a new coach and basically an all-new lineup. And then West Plains, they won their first district title since 1995, I believe, last year, and they return a couple of All-Staters, I believe. And then, Mount Vernon made it to the Final Four and they've got an All-Stater back. Stratford's hanging out there. We're waiting on because they've got Ava Lane, who's going to the University of Kansas. She's only a junior, also a state champion on the track. And so with Stratford, you're waiting on where are they going to land? Are they a Class 2? Are they a Class 3 school? And we'll find that out on Friday. That's a big for their fortunes because they're either going to be one of the absolute smallest Class 3s or one of the biggest Class 2s. And then in Class 2, New Covenant, they were the Final Four team last year. I don't know if that's enough to bump them up to Class 3 as the private school. And then, Class 1, Winona is still hanging out down there. Liberals got a lot back from their Final Four run. We had 2 Southwest Missouri Final Four teams. So I expect a lot of the similar suspects up at the top. But again, we didn't expect New Covenant in the Final Four last year. So there's always going to be a couple that we don't expect that, really turn a corner and make a run.
Chris, what will be the date for the changes in classification number 1, district number 2?
When you come on to your show, you sign on at 7 a.m. on Friday, that's when Mish is going to post them. So you can break news live and read the class and district assignments for everything. All I got to do is go there and refresh. But typically 7 a.m. on the first Friday of football is when you get the new
Do you have any insight, any journalistic insight as to what major changes we might see?
I don't, because it's a lot dependent on where the private schools go with the multiplier, and they changed how they're doing the multiplier this year. Basically, making it a progressive one to where recent success has a heavier hand in where they're going or where a team goes, and it progressively gets more a la. So if you're talking about under the old system, Aminu Muhammad at Greenwood was still affecting them. Like he's been playing in the G League for 2 years now. And I think his championship was still affecting them as of like last year almost. So that's they've changed it to where it's more recent success bias, which is going to change where some of the teams are. I've seen some stuff on social media about where some of these teams should be. Like Rockhurst is expected to be back in Class 5 again, which is a big thing. But each one of those teams that moves up moves someone down. So it's hard to speculate exactly who's going to land where.
Chris, how do these teams handle the news getting broken? For lots of these teams, they're playing their very first games of the season on that Friday. How do you handle maybe getting some tough news on that day, being in a class that you didn't expect to be in, and then going on to play in your first game?
I think for the individual schools, they have a pretty good idea where they're going to land. It's just what district pod do they get put into, and so it's one of those. It comes back to the old coach speak. You control the things you can control, and you control the way you play on Friday. You can't control what your student population is or how Misha draws the boundaries. So I'm sure that's typically the message: is go with what you can control here. And it affects all sports too, because your volleyball teams they're getting ready to start, and they have to look and who's on our schedule, who's not on our schedule, and then that kind of thing. So it's across all sports, and it's an interesting thing to watch. I mean, even in cross country, they only do 4 districts, and so like in the big class, are we going to get are our local kids getting sent to Kansas City or St. Louis or mid Missouri, that kind of thing. That has a big bearing on how many kids we get to the state cross country meet, because there are some absolute powers in the Kansas City and St. Louis area, and it's a little bit luck of the draw on how it lands each year.
Chris, there's new listeners on this new channel that Ned and Scott moved to. There's new people moving to, obviously, the Springfield greater metro area all the time. Explain to them how Ozark Sports Zone will work on Friday, where they go to see scores, when the wrap-up show is. Just give us the lowdown and sell us on your show.
Yeah, so you can go to our website or our app, available everywhere, and we've got someone who runs an update we have all the games from Southwest Missouri listed on the website, and as the games happen, as scores happen, as he gets scores reported to him, he updates the score story. And then as they go final, you can find them there. And so you'll have all the final scores typically by 10 o'clock, we should have every final score. There's always a couple stragglers trying to find, and you can see every score. It's the top story on the homepage. And then this week, I think I've got freelance still photographers out at 18 area games. And I'll go to at least one game and probably shoot some video and some photo. And then we've got our video. We're going to do 2 kind of simultaneous games of the week. So this week it's the Berry County Brawl, Monette at Cassville, really interesting Big 8 game. And then we're also going to have a reporter from beginning to end at Branson and Harrison, or Harrison at Branson, which is a little bit of a border war, which is a fun one that when Branson was in the COC, they couldn't play that game anymore because it's a closed schedule. But, they're expecting, 5,000-6,000 people. It's a big deal down there between Branson and Harrison. And then we got photographers elsewhere with Sully going out as soon as he gets off the desk. And we'll have a full 10 p.m. show there starting at 10:15 on KY3 and KSPR. And then on the Ozark CW at 11:30. It's a whole Ozone show that rebroadcasts after the 10 p.m. news on Sunday as well. So if you miss it or can't record it or can't find it on Friday, you can watch it on Sunday after the 10 p.m. KY3 news.
What is the major football game that Chris Parker feels has the most impact on opening night?
The whole state's interested in Carthage at Nixa. Mm-hmm. Your 2 defending state runners up. It doesn't count for anything in the standings, COC standings, because since they're East and West right now. But it's a measuring stick for both of them. Everybody wants to see how those 2 teams look, and then from there, I really I like the Berry County Brawl. It's interesting. It's a fun. There's anytime you can play for a trophy, it's fun. And they play for a trophy down there, just like the Bell Bowl with Mount Vernon and Aurora. So I'm really interested to see how that one goes because again, we want to see kind of who hoists that trophy. I think Cassville's won 9 of the last 10 in the matchup. But Monette's got a lot coming back this year. So excited to see how that lands. Webb City at Glendale. How do the Falcons look? How's Webb City look as they're trying to bounce back? There's a lot of good stuff in the city this week. I mean, with Webb City's at Glendale, Joplin's at Kickapoo, Reed Springs at Parkview, and Lighthouse Christian Springfield Catholic. So you can just stay in the city and see 4 games right there. And then the metro area, you've got Nixa's at home, Clever's at home, Rogersville's at home, Stratford's at home, and there's some fun matchups up there too. Carl Junction at Stratford, not a game you normally think of, but it's with the new cycle here. You've got a lot of interesting matchups. Houston at Pierce City, a little SCA Southwest Conference. So there's a lot of fun matchups to watch in week 1.
And Chris, for those who aren't into football, you have tennis, you have softball, you have soccer, all this going on as well. And do they all open up their seasons this week?
Yes, everybody opens up this week. A lot of those start on Thursday, but I mean, it's, we talk about the blue and gold a lot, and we, obviously it's tradition, but there's a leadoff tournament in it used to be the Morrisville tournament, but now the Morrisville's now moved to play, or Marion Sierra has moved to play spring softball. So now it's the Republic Leadoff Classic, but it's a 16-team softball tournament that starts at 1:00 on Friday. Willard's the 1 seed, Marshfield's the 2 seed, Republic's the 3 seed, but you've also got Wheatland in there, Hartville, Dadeville. So it's a little bit of a small blue and gold, but for the softball, with the big schools playing the small schools, they play it all the way out and play it in 2 days out there at the Republic Recreation Fields. And the Branson tournament, Branson, Monette, and Stockton volleyball all have tournaments happening all on Saturday. So, you got tournaments going everywhere. It's a fun time, and we'll have coverage from all those volleyball tournaments, all those softball tournaments. And then Webb City, they're hosting a full soccer tournament. Pool play is on Thursday and Friday, and then they play bracket play or place game play on Saturday. So there's a lot of fun coming starting on Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
And we expect live breaking coverage on all of them, okay?
I'll do my best.
Chris, thanks a million for visiting with us. See you a little bit later on today, okay?
Yep, appreciate it.
That's Chris Parker visiting with us. He is from the Ozone. In fact, he runs the Ozone, and it's an award winner. Has won an award every single year, and they do such a great job of prep sports. Timeout, back in a second. Welcome back to the starting lineup, and we only have a few seconds remaining in this segment. Enough time to tell you that Art Haynes will be joining us in our next segment, and we will be devoting much of the next half hour to general discussion of what's going on in sports, and invite your phone calls at 447-1021. That is the key right there, because we value very much your comments and questions and queries, your input into exactly what we talk about here. So please get that on the line, and then we'll be all set. In the meantime, we're going to take a quick break here on the starting lineup, our mid-show timeout, and we will be back in a very short time.